Hi there everyone, welcome back to Dandelion Delphi tutorials. Today we're going to look at string handling making use of for loops. So if you haven't watched lesson 10 regarding for loops yet, I suggest you do that first. You know that we can go to different positions in a string by using square brackets. So if I wanted to store the first character, I would use a 1, the second character number 2, and then I can even do that with string variables, and this is what we're going to do today, and putting a 3 there. But as you can see, this is looping from 1 to 2 to 3, so a perfect place to use a for loop. When we are going to do string handling, we are going to use an integer data type for our for loop variable. So I'm going to loop from 1 to 2 to 3, going to each character of the string, all the way to the length of that string. We are often asked to remove vowels or maybe some other characters that we have to remove from a string. In this case, we're removing vowels as well as spaces from a string. And the correct method to use when you are removing characters is to build a new string without those characters. So what I'm doing in my if statement here, I'm using a not. Take careful note of this bracket. A not needs a bracket and a condition on the inside. And to remove vowels and spaces, I'm going to use the current character. So let's say John was entered. When the loop executes for the first time, K would be 1. And I'm testing if the capital letter of J is in the range A, E, I, O, U or a space. If it is not, I'm then going to add that character to SNew. So I'm building a string. SNew is assigned to SNew plus the current character. The current character would be J, since K at the moment is 1. Now my loop executes again and K changes to 2. I'm now getting to the O of John. So if the capital letter of the second character is in A, E, I, O, U, which it is, but I've placed a not around this. So my if statement says if it is not an O, add it. So since it is an O, this if statement will be false and this line will not be executed. That means the O would not be added to SNew. And in that way, removed to the user. That is what they will see. They think you are removing it, but you're actually building a string just without those characters. And so it will continue with all the other characters. If we go to now the third character, it would be an H, and the H is not one of these. In other words, it will be added to my SNew string variable, and the H will be added, and so will the N. Remember, the rule still counts that says if a variable is on both sides of the assignment statement, it needs to be initialized. Since there is a loop, I will initialize this variable directly above the loop. Since this is a string, I'm going to initialize it as an empty string. These are two single inverted commas next to each other. If I now display SNew outside of my loop, I will be displaying the input from the user not containing any vowels or spaces. This is now your time to practice. So go and download the Dandelion Delphi Book 1 data files from this link if you haven't done so before. Open the program in the string handling folder and try the count words menu. If you want to count words, you need to count spaces, but you will see that if you're only counting spaces, you might have one word less. Think how you can solve that problem. Try it yourself, press pause and then watch the memo. sSentence is the input from the user, and I have used iCount, a local variable, to count my number of words, which is really counting the number of spaces. Remember to initialize iCount because we're using inc iCount on the inside of my for loop. How I came around the problem that I had with having too few words displaying is I added a space to the end of what the user entered. Remember, they will enter the sentence and you are counting spaces, but the last word does not have a space afterwards. So I've just added the space to that sentence. Now I am looping with my integer k variable from 1 to the length of the sentence. And every time that the current character is a space, I then I count. And in this way I have counted the words and can display the number of words that is in that string. Now try the menu Count Vowels, but you're counting more than just vowels. Read carefully, try it yourself, press pause, and then I'll show you the memo. S sentence is again my input from the user, and I am counting vowels, consonants, capital letters and lowercase letters all being used in ink, so I will have to initialize them all above the loop. All of them are local variables, and I'm looping from 1 to the length of the sentence. My first if statement here is testing if the current character is a vowel. This didn't have to be case sensitive, it had to actually be case insensitive, and therefore I've used the upcase. So if the current character is A, E, I, O, U, I'm going to increment a vowel. If it is not a vowel, this nested if statement of mine will be executed. I had to add this if statement here because I wanted to prevent counting any spaces or maybe special characters or commas and full stops and exclamation marks. You'll see A is included here, but if the character was an A, this line here would have been executed inc I vowel, and this would have been ignored. So if I run this if statement, or this if statement is executed, this character here will not be a vowel. I'm just testing here if it's maybe a consonant, and then I'm going to increase that variable. The next if statement is testing if the current character is a capital letter. So I am putting in my in operator the capital letters A to Z. Note that I don't want to put an upcase here because I want to see if it is in fact a capital letter. Then I will inc I caps. In the nested if statement here, I'm testing if it's a lowercase letter, and I had to put this range here because I again didn't want to count any special characters or spaces. After this code ran inside of the begin and end of my for loop, I will now have the answer of how many vowels, consonants, capitals, and lowercase letters there were in the sentence. And outside this loop, I'm simply just displaying those variables. The next question is asking you to remove vowels and spaces, so you can use the start of this video to help you do that. But make sure that you are keeping the first character of every word, since it has to remove spaces, special characters, and vowels, except if it is the first letter of the word. Try it yourself, press pause, and then watch the video. Here is the input from the user stored as is input, and since I'm removing characters, I'm going to build a string. But remember, the first character of each word needed to be added. So for that reason, I have initialized snew as the first character of the input instead of initializing it to an empty string. Now my for loop starts at 2, since I've already added the first character, and I will loop all the way to the length of that input. The first if statement here is just making sure that I'm not including any spaces or special characters for the next part of the program. So I'm testing if the current character is in fact a character from A to Z. If that is true, then I'm going to test if the current character is not an A, E, I, O, U. Then I'm going to add this character. But you'll see that I also have included here, or if the S input K minus 1 is equal to a space. In our previous activity, you used the space to count the number of words. So before each word, there is a space. In other words, if the character before the character I'm currently at is a space, it means that the current character is the first letter of a new word. And then I will also add that input to snew. And then I simply display the new input stored in snew outside of my loop. You are now ready to continue with all the other activities for string handling on your own. Thank you for watching Dandelion Delphi tutorials. For more explanations and activities, have a look at Dandelion Delphi Book 1. Hope to see you soon!